Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AI Marketing Podcast, where we delve into the latest innovations and strategies in the world of artificial intelligence with the marketing slant for the most part. So, I'm your host, Mark Fidelman. Today, we're exploring a topic that's been making waves across the tech industry, DeepSeek. Now, this comes about 1 week after DeepSeek was released, and I'm doing the analysis here, not just the hype, okay? So, this Chinese AI startup has not only challenged the status quo, ChatGPT and Anthropic with Claude, but pretty much has redefined what's possible in AI development. But we're going to cut through the hype. So let's start with our first segment on this, looking at the genesis of DeepSeek, because this came out of nowhere, at least from my point of view. Some of you might have been following it. DeepSeek was founded in May 2023 by Lian Wenfeng, and if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. He's a millennial hedge fund entrepreneur from into AI. Lian co-founded High Flower Capital in 2015. Now, I don't know that institution either, but it was a hedge fund that utilized AI to identify stock patterns, and they amassed a lot of assets under management. And using that AI led him in his passion to establish DeepSeek as more of a research-focused organization and distinct from his profit-driven enterprises. So essentially, he went from a hedge fund manager to an AI guy. That's not easy to do. This is a really smart person. So with that as a backdrop, let's get into DeepSeek playbook and how this company went viral so fast. It was literally over the weekend, last weekend. So the first thing they did, and I've seen this with other open source companies that I've been CMO of or VP of. The first thing they did, and I've seen this with other open source companies that I've been CMO of or VP of sales, pretty much been both of those roles since I got out of college. And just to let you know, in my research, DeepSeek didn't just waltz onto the AI scene with a fancy new model. They basically stormed in like a tech world Trojan horse and flipped the script on OpenAI, Anthropic, and the entire VC-backed AI establishment. You saw all the stock prices going down on Microsoft, NVIDIA, anybody had to do with a competition to DeepSeek. But while OpenAI and Anthropic are busy, hoarding their models, DeepSeek is taking a radically different approach. They went fully open source, and OpenAI I thought was supposed to do that. I think Elon Musk donated for the same reason, but they have now gone close. If it's making a difference, and it's because open source isn't just a technical decision. In my mind, they did it as a growth hack, and I've seen this with other open source companies that I've worked with. So now every AI developer on the planet can use, improve, and hype up their model basically for free. We've seen this with Ethereum, except for gas fees. And because of that, they instantly created basically a massive unpaid workforce that are fine-tuning and expanding DeepSeek's capabilities. That's massive. And they position themselves as the Robin Hood of AI, bringing cutting-edge technology to the masses, while OpenAI and Anthropic keep their models behind velvet ropes. Now, we've seen open source disrupt industries, but we really haven't seen, and they've tried, any browsers or software, there's a few that have overtaken the big giants. But DeepSeek's claiming they're doing it at like 1/10 the cost. So let's talk about the impact of that. So DeepSeek's open source play basically exploded on GitHub because that's where all the developers are. Twitter, because Twitter AI is just massive, and a place called Hugging Face, which I know nothing about, but in my research that was another place that basically exploded on. And AI engineers jumped in, ran their own benchmarks, and guess what? DeepSeek actually held up. It wasn't just another overhyped paperweight AI model. It actually held up. And there's a lot of speculation as to why, but some people thought they stole some of the OpenAI models, and all that'll be sorted out. I'm skeptical as well. All that'll be sorted out. I'm skeptical as well. But in my research, DeepSeek isn't as good as ChatGPT or Claude for marketing types of tasks. What I see it good for is basically Chinese cultural tasks. It's going to be better than OpenAI or Anthropic just because it's been culturally trained to be. But the model's pretty damn good. It's better than Meta's Llama 2. I think it's better than some of the other ones that are out there as well. And speaking of Meta's Llama 2, it went open source as well, and it became an instant industry disruptor for the moment. But the difference is DeepSeek pushed the gas pedal to the floor. They basically gave the community detailed documentation, fine-tuning guides, and optimization strategies, and they kept it very inexpensive and made it redundant. So the end result there is, DeepSeek's already got thousands of developers, where Llama 2 didn't have that kind of traction at all. So you guys saw the viral traction on AI forums, Twitter, Discord servers if you were on that, and GitHub, like I was just talking about, which gave DeepSeek instant credibility, especially because it wasn't some sketchy state-backed black box or a corporate-backed black box. It became a real viable alternative in the AI arms race because you could test it out, and I encourage you to. I don't think it's as good, but you might have a different opinion. And then something else happened. They said, well, it only cost us $5.6 million to build this. I call bullshit on that. They basically dropped a nuclear bomb on the AI industry with a single number, 5.6 million. Basically dropped a nuclear bomb on the AI industry with a single number, 5.6 million. But further research has shown that doesn't include all the GPUs and all the rest of the things that it needed prior to it to create it. So the $5.6 billion number is a marketing number. It might have been what it cost them to train their model, their R1 model, but believe me, it cost them more. It's going to cost them more to maintain it. These models aren't cheap. But the marketing headline was, well, why did it take OpenAI 100 million to $1 billion to create their training for ChatGPT 4, or 50 million is what Anthropic says it spent on the Claude model. So that number that DeepSeek put out wasn't just a stat, it was a marketing nuclear weapon immediately created for a David versus Goliath narrative. So, and very, very easy to set up and use, just like ChatGPT. And because we're a marketing podcast, let's dive a little bit deeper on how they weaponized this number. So they directly compared it to the AI elites that are out there, and they just didn't claim efficiency. They forced the world to question OpenAI's insane costs. And that was a big deal. And I saw these headlines, stating Chinese startup trains ChatGPT rival for just 5.6 million. And those headlines practically wrote themselves, didn't they? And so they're putting out these marketing numbers, which are not true, and they're combining it with that David versus Goliath narrative, and it's like dynamite to people in the press. And then, of course, the investors saw that, and that's why NVIDIA stock dropped 17%, because these traders were freaking out. The investors saw that, and that's why NVIDIA stock dropped 17%, because these traders were freaking out that DeepSeek might no longer need people that use all of the NVIDIA chips would require less NVIDIA chips, because now we've got DeepSeek that's made it much more efficient and effective to use it. And I'll just tell you how DeepSeek's positioned real quick before we move on as to why they're able to make it cheaper. Because, when NVIDIA goes out there, I'm sorry, not NVIDIA, when ChatGPT and OpenAI and Anthropic go out there, they've got the entire universe of human knowledge that is just sitting there waiting for your prompt. Where DeepSeek looks at it as experts and will only pull in the expert it needs. So requires a lot less compute power. It's faster. It is more efficient because of that model. Now, I'd argue with more than one expert. I haven't benchmarked that, so if anyone does know, just put it in the show notes. So, as all of this is happening basically last week, the AI world lost its mind. Some said DeepSeek was cooking its numbers. It's one thing to hear it from the company themselves, it's another to actually see it. Because, who's going to trust a startup with $1 billion disruption claim? A lot of others, including traders, panicked. But let's face it, it didn't matter. DeepSeek already had won the media wars at that point and got into the national discussion, actually international discussion, and the $5.6 million stat became their brand identity. So at that point, they weren't just another AI competitor. They definitely became a viable competitor with the Goliaths that are already out there. And they were known as now the efficiency kings, the ones who shifted the cost curve and exposed ridiculous spending habits. And, I kind of look at this as kind of the Sputnik moment of AI. But let's look at it this way. The real marketing genius was that DeepSeek didn't just rely on the media to tell their story. They engineered this whole thing, this whole viral moment. They let influencers, AI researchers, and hedge funds traders do the heavy lifting. And in fact, more nefariously, some are speculating, I haven't confirmed this, that they were shorting OpenAI, well, at least NVIDIA, but any company that would compete with DeepSeek. So let's look at the playbook for this one. After they engineer all this stuff, after the media attention, Twitter, or X, blew up. The now infamous tweet from Wall Street Engine, which is at Wall St Engine, compared DeepSeek's launch Wall St Engine, compared DeepSeek's launch to the Sputnik moment, a wake-up call for the West, proving that China had overtaken the U.S. in AI efficiency. It wasn't true, but whether Wall Street Engine was paid or not to say that, it had a big impact, and the fear factor kicked in. And if China could train ChatGPT level models for a fraction of the cost, what else could they do? And so everyone was panicking. It's all engineered, folks. But marketers take note. These are things that you can put together in your own marketing. I'm not saying to be unethical. I'm not saying they were unethical. I'm sure they're pulling real numbers, but they're putting in contexts that they knew would catch fire in the space. So they have massive engagement, which sparked debates on X, and the experts were arguing back and forth whether it was real, if NVIDIA was doomed, a little bit after this segment. But, at the end of the day, they just didn't launch their product. They launched a movement. They hacked virality by tapping into the geopolitical fears, China versus U.S., tech supremacy, Wall Street panic, as these AI companies suddenly had to explain their bloated costs, which was kind of funny. And then the AI industry chaos. Can you really build AGI with way less compute? We're going to get into that. And the answer is yes and no, but we'll get into that. So the marketing takeaway is DeepSeek didn't just build an AI platform, they built the narrative at the same time. Some good lessons there. And the reason DeepSeek is everywhere right now isn't just because they made a solid model, it's because they hijacked the conversation, and it was a big conversation already. They created that David versus Goliath showdown with OpenAI conversation already. They created that David versus Goliath showdown with OpenAI and Anthropic. They made investors question the entire cost structure of AI. I know internally we were doing the same. And they turned their pricing model into a viral moment that sent shockwaves through the industry. And guess what? It worked. It worked. There's a lot of lessons here. I encourage you to deep dive into this. So whether DeepSeek is the real deal or not, they've already changed the AI game, because now every AI company will be judged against that $5.6 million price tag. It's not fair, but a lot of investors have only heard that and only saw that it worked, and it was pretty damn good and was somewhat competitive with ChatGPT. And OpenAI and Anthropic, they just simply can't unring that bell. So now they're stuck on their heels trying to figure out how to respond to that. So that is kind of my overview of the marketing and how it went down. Okay, so let's go to maybe our next segment here, how they are standing out among the giants. And when we compare DeepSeek to industry leaders like Anthropic and OpenAI, ChatGPT, several distinctions emerge. Well, I see OpenAI and Anthropic having developed advanced models with substantial investments. DeepSeek's approach emphasizes cost efficiency and open source collaboration. Ultimately, will they win? The jury's still out. And DeepSeek's R1 model, for instance, was trained using approximately 2,000 NVIDIA H800 chips costing about $5.6 million. In contrast, OpenAI's models have training costs estimated between $100 million to $1 billion. We talked about this earlier. This efficiency doesn't just challenge what's currently in place and the norms around that, but it also, I believe, democratizes AI development, making it accessible to a much broader range of innovators, especially around the AI open source model. But you heard all of the people out there saying, okay, now we've got a more efficient system. We won't need as many NVIDIA chips. The whole compute space is going to go down. We're not going to have a need for it anymore. But there's something, I've been around long enough to know just the opposite is going to happen. Let's just say DeepSeek is real and they've been able to shortcut the whole system and they need far less chips than what they claim they need. And when they say train, it's one thing to train, it's another thing to deploy. Okay? And so if you haven't heard the term, the Jevons paradox, this is what we're going to see if indeed DeepSeek has made this far less cost prohibitive. So let's just talk about this big, messy, inconvenient truth of AI, and it's called compute power. So right now, a lot of smart people are walking around saying, hey, we don't need that much compute anymore. Look at DeepSeek. They built a ChatGPT 4 competitor for just $5.6 million. AI is going to get more efficient, so we'll need fewer GPUs, right? Wrong. And here's why. The Jevons paradox. It's an economic principle that basically says, and I learned this a long time ago, and I've seen it and witnessed it, is the more efficient a resource becomes, the more people use it. Now, instead of boring you with kind of my old let's take a very relevant example, cloud storage. Back in the early 2000s, storing data was very expensive. If you had a business, you paid out the nose for hard drives and server space. I remember this. Then Amazon, Google, and Microsoft came along with cloud storage. Suddenly, businesses could store petabytes of data for pennies. Sounds great, right? Nope. What happened? People stopped deleting anything. Instead of reducing storage costs, the total amount of data exploded. No one wanted to delete anything because they could save it forever. So now we can create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data per day based on my latest research. Because why delete anything when storage is cheap, right? The same thing is about to happen with AI compute. DeepSeek may have made compute cheaper. Let's say that they did, but that's going to only fuel more demand for it as it becomes. Let's say that they did, but that's going to only fuel more demand for it as it becomes more available to people that might not have had the money just days ago. So DeepSeek's model might use fewer GPUs, but here's the real world impact. Much more AI models will get built and do it in a faster way. And companies will deploy AI everywhere because now they can afford it. So demand for GPUs is going to skyrocket, not shrink. You should be buying that dip in NVIDIA, not shrinking away from it. So let's say you run a startup, and before you might have hesitated to build an AI-powered product because training a model would cost you tens of millions of dollars. But now you see DeepSeek's efficiency and think, wow, if they can trade a model for $5.6 million, I could fine-tune one for even less. Multiply that thinking across every government, And what do you get? They run on GPUs and compute power like we've never seen before. And I'm just going to illustrate, a few examples. I mean, not even training AI models, when you get into some of the AI agents that come out, and we'll talk about this in a minute, the demand is just going to skyrocket even more. So, okay, I want to talk about who currently controls that compute power: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, for the most part, the big three. And you really have three choices, according to the experts, according to the media: Google Cloud, Amazon Web Services, and Microsoft Azure. Sounds great, right? We have three choices? No, wrong. These companies do not work for you. They work for governments, political interests, and their own, and they set up their own rules. And we've seen this with some of the big tech companies, that if they don't like what you're producing or creating, or you weren't using the right terminology in, the social society, then they cancel you. We've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. So let me give you a real world scenario. You build an AI-powered app that challenges mainstream narratives. Maybe it's a decentralized news aggregator or a free speech AI assistant. And your app starts gaining traction. It's growing fast. Then one day, boom, Amazon, Google, or Microsoft cancels your cloud account. No warning, no appeal. Sound familiar? It should. Parler got deplatformed overnight by AWS. Google and Apple killed alternative social networks by blocking their apps. They almost did it to X. Microsoft has shadow banned AI projects that don't align with the responsible AI guidelines. And who's to say what's responsible or not? Microsoft? You really trust them? Now imagine if that happens to your AI-powered business. And that's why there is more choices than just the big three. One that I work with, Exhibits, they are not controlled by Silicon Valley giants. They're building independent, scalable AI compute infrastructure, and they're doing it in a way that puts the power back in the hands of the users. And it's not just Exhibits. There's plenty of these companies that are out there. It's just the one I know best. And I think it's the future, and I think it's critical for the future of AI, and I think it's relevant to blockchain in a decentralized type of model, or open source, where there's nobody kind of controlling whether you can use something or not. And these things have decentralized compute power, so that no single entity controls these alternative GPU cloud clusters that let businesses operate without worrying about big tech interference. And it's AI compute that can't be censored, so if your AI app runs on, maybe it's an Exhibits network, it won't get canceled just because some Silicon Valley exec doesn't like what you're building. And you can imagine how having an oligarchy or GOPI controlling and working together to control what can and can't be built, how dangerous that is, right? Especially if you have a competitor to them. And there's this supply chain independence. So while Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are prioritizing their biggest corporate clients, these decentralized AI compute providers are designed for the next wave of AI startups, the ones that can't afford to be deplatformed. They are a lot cheaper. So what's coming next then? Well, companies like Exhibits will be essential for AI's future because AI compute demand is about to skyrocket. There's no question about it. And I don't trust big tech. You've seen what they did with censorship. And you see what happens when you deplatform them. You don't have a lot of choices. So they can't be trusted to fairly distribute the power. They're going to give it to their big clients first. They may or may not give you the leftovers. Who knows? They might try to control it amongst the three of them, buy up all the data centers. So the AI revolution will be built on these third parties, these decentralized third parties with independent infrastructure. So let's just be real. AI isn't going to require less compute using Jevons' paradox. It's going to require more. And unless you want your AI business to be completely at the mercy of Silicon Valley, It really is time to start looking at alternatively as this thing's going to explode, especially if DeepSeek is real and the compute cost has gone down and now almost anyone can afford it. So the future of AI isn't going to be about the DeepSeek models necessarily, because you'll be able to replicate what they did and maybe make that even cheaper. It's about who controls the infrastructure that powers them. So let's talk about one of my favorite subjects, speaking of compute power, and that is AGI and AI agents. And I like to start off by just defining what AGI is, because a lot of people don't know. And right now, all the AI models we use with ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek are what we all call narrow AI. They're great at specific tasks, but they lack true reasoning. They're not very adaptive, and they don't have self-awareness. They're alive or dead or just an AI program. So enter in artificial general intelligence. That's AGI. It's the holy grail, folks. This is what people have been talking about. You probably haven't heard a lot about it because there's not a lot of it that exists yet in a format that you would be familiar with. But this is the AI that can think, learn, and adapt across any domain, just like a human. It won't just answer questions or generate text. It will learn new skills on the fly without needing retraining, just by watching you or by observing other groups of people or training videos on YouTube. I kid you not. And it will be able to solve completely novel problems without pre-programmed responses. These things are learning on the fly and making connections faster than our neural networks. And they're going to be able to understand abstract concepts like humor, philosophy, and long-term planning. It's going to be mind-blowing. We're very close. So once we it's going to be mind-blowing. We're very close. So once we reach AGI, and it won't just replace some of the things that your company's doing, like customer service reps and content writers. It will replace doctors, scientists, engineers, and even CEOs. But to replace the physical aspects of being a doctor or an engineer, you will need robots to do it. But that, you see that coming too. So when I talk about AI agents now from AGI, these are an extension of AGI. This is what I deem the workforce of the future. So if AGI is the brain, then AI agents are the workers. And what are AI agents? AI agents are autonomous digital entities that can perform tasks without our human oversight. So unlike today's AI chatbots, which still need human guidance, AI agents conduct scientific research, run entire companies autonomously, optimize global supply chains in real time. I think we're actually getting there already with that one. Build and improve software without human programmers. You just give it a goal and it goes and does it. And, I always like to illustrate these with real world applications. So in finance, for example, AI agents will be running hedge funds, detecting fraud and automating global trade, based on optimization parameters. In healthcare, you'll see personalized AI doctors, especially from devices that are monitoring you. It will diagnose illnesses and design custom treatments, and it'll make sure that you're taking them. In manufacturing, AI-driven robotics overseeing entire smart factories with minimal human input. We've already seen this with what I call dumb AI, where these things are working automatically, but it's only doing it in a fixed, very narrow format. But imagine when they get really smart and you start asking it to make improvements on its own and to make it more efficient. In legal, AI lawyers handling litigation, reviewing contracts, and making legal judgments. We're already seeing that from a narrow perspective. I'm hoping it just takes out lawyers, judges, all of it should be gone. Very corrupt practice, very corrupt industry, needs to be changed. In marketing and sales, this is where it impacts you. AI will help close deals, optimize ad campaigns, and dynamically adjust brand messaging in real time, just for starters. So the bottom line, AI agents will be the ultimate automation revolution. Every industry will be disrupted, and companies that don't use them will be obsolete. And we're talking 2 or 3 years. I don't think it's much longer than that. You should be on top of this. How much than that? You should be on top of this. How much compute power do you think AGI and AI agents need? Now, here's the kicker. In my research, building AGI and AI agents will require an insane amount of compute power. Right now, ChatGPT is estimated to run on 25,000 to 50,000 NVIDIA A100s or H100 GPUs. That's a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure. What do you think is needed with AGI compute? So most experts predict that training AGI-level models will require 10 to 100 times more compute than today's models. That's millions of GPUs running nonstop. And the AI compute demand will explode by 1,000x as soon as this is realized. And then even today, AI compute demand is already doubling every 6 months. If you want to train AGI within the next 5 to 10 years, we'll need 1,000 times more compute power than we have. It could require the energy output of a small country. So where is all this compute power going to come from? Well, if Google, Amazon, and Microsoft control it all, good luck building your own AGI startup. They're going to give it all to the big guys or the governments. They'll dictate who gets access, how it's used, and if they don't like what you're doing, shut you down instantly. This is why these independent compute providers, these decentralized providers, are the future. They'll break down the monopolies. They'll make it possible for anyone, not just big tech, to build the next generation of AI. And I keep pushing this because I think guys all know I'm a big blockchain fan as well. And I like decentralization. I don't like putting power in the hands of the big tech guys. We see how they act. So the AI endgame, who will control AGI? Here's the biggest question of them all. Who will own AGI when it arrives? Right now, the battle is between OpenAI, who wants AGI to OpenAI, who wants AGI to be safe, but is tightly controlled by Microsoft. Anthropic, this is focused on AI alignment, making sure AI behaves ethically. DeepSeek, this is China's AI powerhouse that we started with, is pushing the boundaries on making it more efficient. And then you have independent AI projects like Exhibits aiming for decentralized AI outside the control of governments and corporations. So if we don't want AGI to be controlled by a handful of elites, we need alternatives. And AGI should not be controlled by a single company. God, I hope not. You imagine what they'd do to it? AI agents should work for individuals and businesses, not governments and monopolies. And we should hopefully see some regulation around that. We need decentralized AI compute to make sure a lot of this innovation isn't locked behind corporate gates. Now, I don't think it computes well, but let's face it. Do we want it controlled by 3 companies? Hell no. So, with all that said, it's clear the future of AI belongs to those who control the compute, and whoever controls the GPUs and data centers of the future will basically own the intelligence economy, as I'm calling it, because it's about to get really, really intelligent. So let me wrap this all up, because I'm going way longer than I normally do. DeepSeek's emergence is a testament to the power of innovation. Lots of lessons with their marketing, right? And its relentless pursuit of efficiency. At least that's what they're telling us. It's a weekend. And as we witness this rapid evolution in AI, and trust me, we didn't know about ChatGPT 2 years ago, and look what it's done to our workforce, our lives, and everything else. That's 2 years ago, or not even 2 years ago. Lives and everything else. That's 2 years ago, or not even 2 years ago. Imagine 2 years from now. So it's crucial to consider both the opportunities and challenges that are going to come with making this technology more accessible, more widespread, more powerful. And I want you to, really think about that. And if you're in marketing, get way the heck ahead of this. Your job is going to change dramatically. If it's not 2 years, find why. Especially with this AGI stuff that's coming. You think we're stopping anytime soon? No. This thing is going to explode onto the scene. Your job's going to change. For the better, I will add. We'll be able to do much more important things in this world than what you're doing today, because the AI will handle a lot of this. So with that said, I'll do a follow-up to this as I learn more as well. But I want to thank you for joining me on this episode of the AI Marketing Podcast. And we're going to have some great guests coming up. And I'll continue to update you on what I'm learning in the space, being in the space, and what I'm hearing and when I'm talking to the experts.